Constitution, international human rights law applies only in the secular sphere, which is very small. Relating to marriage, family relations, inheritance, what is applied is communal norms, religious ones, Hindu law or Muslim law, or the law of any particular religious community, which means that we have not started even addressing these conflicts of various layers of laws which we have, let alone seeing how we could best promote, how we could articulate the rights of women and children. Yeah, go ahead with that.
Worldwide, the governments are not representative of the people, and yet human rights seems to be a movement that is coming from the people, which has always been concentrated in the government. I wonder if in this country, if we get to be more decided to be more and more aware of how the government is not representing the people, and how, I mean, if there's a revolution that's going on.
Yes.
And I just wonder, is human rights the forum, or what is the cause of this ferment?
There are ways in which human rights can help. One of the glaring examples confirming what you have just said is political participation of women, where you see that roughly arithmetic tells us that women are about 50% of all the world's electorate, and they are about 9% of the world's parliamentarians, which is quite bad because in 1980s they used to be 12. So women's, globally speaking, women's political voice in parliament is sinking. We are going backwards rather than going forward. If one looks at cabinet at the ministerial level, women have obtained the glaringly small 3.5%. So they're just not there. Which means that here, what we would have to start doing, and unfortunately we are not, is redesigning democracy on the basis of equal rights. As long as we have the system of political participation which we have, which is one which I like quite a lot, describing from a very malicious viewpoint the US political system, saying this is the best democracy which money can buy. So if you can raise $20 million, you can start as a candidate and you can get yourself elected, and nobody will ask what about women, what about people with disabilities, where are they? Where are children? Where are young people in the US politics? Human rights can help a great deal quite sensibly. If one looks into how much has been accomplished to increase women's political voice everywhere, you only have to look at the Nordic countries. Parliamentary representation is about 40-45%. There is a woman Minister of Defense. There is a woman Governor of the Central Bank, and people are used to it. You would have in Norway, which had for 20 years female Prime Minister, little boys asking their daddies when daddies would come to take them home from kindergarten. And one of them asking, Daddy, could a man become Prime Minister of Norway? Daddy was shocked, but saying, he grew up just seeing a female Prime Minister. So people are now quite used to the fact that women are running governments, which has extremely good implications because you won't catch Nordic countries overspending on the military or attacking each other. You will catch them in putting a lot of money into education, into welfare, into social development. So it's all for the good, we think. Yes?
I'm a teacher, special ed. I have worked in inner city schools, especially in New York, for over 10 years. And I can relate to everything you have said because it's well and alive here in the States. And I've always been an advocate because I was lucky enough not just to be a teacher, but also education evaluator, school-based support team. gave me access to a lot of kids, all the levels from elementary to high school, and their stories because I also have to do social history. And let me tell you, not only the rights of the kids are not being met, but also the rights of the parents, because a lot of these parents don't know the rights. A lot of these parents are not educated enough, and the system takes advantage of it. And special ed should exist, not like people say that it should eliminate it, but it should be in a different way than the way it is implemented right now. Right now, it's the dump of everybody else that they don't want to deal with. They're not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I hope someday soon we'll do something about United States educational system.
Yes, I promise you. Yes.
I chose not to work as a teacher anymore because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But I was an advocate, and I was able to do some changes when I was working inside the system.
Thank you very much.
What interests me, you mentioned the Constitution of India. How does the United Nations get around the Constitution of the United States, where no foreign powers are supposed to interfere with the education? Where does the United Nations fit in coming in here and trying to get us to change our ways, change the constitutional ways, the ways of this government? I'm a little bit confused as how that can happen and where the United Nations gets its authority to do that.
It is a battle. It has been for the past 5 decades, and it's a battle which is certainly going on well into the next millennium. The battle consists of trying to internationalize human rights, which means obviously forcing individual governments, all their parts, not only the executive, also the judiciary and the parliament, to concede that conceptual universality of human rights requires allowing the international community to have more of a say. So that human rights would not be American rights or Danish rights or Peruvian rights, but human. We all have rights because we are human. We haven't got quite there. What has been accomplished in the past 30 years was a huge move, particularly in Western Europe, whereby individual governments throughout Western Europe had willingly and knowingly established supranational human rights systems, trying to implement in practice this ideal of guaranteeing all Europeans more or less similar rights at the level of Europe, which works much more effectively because the number of governments is much smaller. There are only about 30 of them. All of them have pretty well developed domestic human rights systems. Within the United Nations, it does not function that well because there is 187 of them, and many of them have absolutely no intention of recognizing such a subversive thing as human rights, recognizing the right of their population to dismantle the government and put another one in there. So it's not easy. The way that United Nations does it is through two different entry points. One of them, which is legal and where almost nothing has been accomplished, so I'm going to skip that. United States of America has ratified some rights treaties, but with such big reservations that the United Nations can't do anything. So let's keep that. The other point of entry is political bodies, which can do much more because they can step over national sovereignty if they have been well substantiated evidence that they are glaring, big, serious human rights problems. So there was 2 years ago, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Racism and Racial Discrimination, who came to the United States of America to look around, wrote a very disturbing report. The US government was not too happy, but they had to play by the rules. United Nations rule is if the problem